All right, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here for this Lunch and Learn series presented by MCK Accountants and Advisors. We are very grateful to them and to our live stream sponsor, WGLT, Bloomington Normal's Public Media, part of the NPR network. We are really excited today to be joined by Jeff Hake. He is a policy organizer for the Illinois Stewardship Alliance, and he will discuss the Alliance theory of change and their strategy for organizing farmers and eaters to foster a more just and regenerative food system. He's also going to tell us a little bit about the work that they're doing out at the Funk Farm. So without further ado, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. All right, is that sound working? Am I still good? All right. Let me get this in my pocket. Okay, thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Right, so I'm kind of here wearing two hats, and I have a few more that we can, a few more hats we can talk about if you like. But the two main ones, and I'll actually talk about our farm first. I do a lot of off-farm work, but I try to call myself a farmer first, which is hard sometimes when there's a lot of other stuff to do. But to talk a little bit about our farm, you're probably familiar with Funk's Grove pure maple syrup. If I'm ever around this area and I'm trying to describe what I do, I usually just start there because people are like, oh yeah, like either they go there every day, or they went there for a field trip when they were a kid. They're used to at least seeing it on the highway. So I am married into the Funk family. My wife is Katie Funk. She and her brother, who are in this picture here, are the sixth generation of the Funk family in Funk's Grove. And I'm lucky enough to get to be a part of it as well. Oh, I forgot my clicker over here. So I do a little bit with the maple syrup operation. I wish I did more, honestly. But the main thing I do, if you ever want to do a tour out of the shop, is I've become kind of the tour leader. So a lot of homeschool groups, senior groups, college students, that kind of thing. So I want to tell you more, and don't hesitate to ask questions about the syrup shop at the end. I love talking about the syrup shop, but I did want to tell you more about our other farm, because why not have more than one farm? My wife, Katie, and Jonathan, and I operate Funk's Grove Heritage Fruits and Grains. So they started this farm before Katie and I actually met, and it's actually how Katie and I met. So they wanted to start, they had access to some land that, a very small 9-acre parcel that their folks had purchased originally to start an organic winery. They did that for a few years and discovered that growing organic grapes and turning it into good wine is incredibly difficult. And they're already doing the maple syrup shop and 1,000 acres of row cropping. So they still owned the property, but they had pulled the grapes out and it was just being mowed for hay. And so they thought that they would start a farm that grew some food crops that worked well with the maple syrup operation. So they founded Funk's Grove Heritage Fruits and Grains. And at the time I was working for the Land Connection in Champaign, which is a farmer training organization, especially for small farms, beginning farmers. And my job was to find resources for beginning farmers. So if you are familiar with Prairie Earth Farm in Atlanta, the organic farm down there, the owners there introduced me to Katie in a professional matter of helping them figure out resources to start this farm. And we hit it off, and then I moved away for a little while, moved back, and became the third partner in the farm. So 2018, when I first became part of the operation and moved officially back to Illinois for good, was the first year we started selling products. So we were growing wheat and corn on an extremely small scale using specialty crops, like really special variety, heirloom varieties, that kind of thing. And then they had also planted an orchard. And so that's kind of been the mainstay of what we do. So what that looks like currently is it's a grand total of 13 acres. So we have the 9-acre parcel, and then we rent some additional ground nearby. And surprise, surprise, we grow fruits and grains. But we also do some foraging. So if you're familiar with ramps and pawpaws, and I'll have pictures and things. But if you've ever been out in the grove and if you know your plants, you know that there are lots of ramps and lots of pawpaws out in the woods. So ramps are a wild onion species. And if you go out to the grove right now, and you'll see big patches of big leaves coming out of the ground. It looks like lily of the valley, except lily of the valley is poisonous, and ramps are not. But you can tell them apart by the smell very easily. So ramps are delicious. They're very sought after. And so we'll forage those. We never, except for like a little personal use, occasionally maybe. I probably won't do any this year because just the leaves themselves are good on their own, and they're very pungent. And it's also just easier to harvest the leaves than harvest the whole plant. And it doesn't take any of the roots out of the ground and disrupt the plants. So we'll cut those and turn those into a seasoning. We harvest the pawpaws in the fall. If you're not familiar with pawpaws, they are it's a bizarre fruit in the way that it seems like it shouldn't be here. It's a tropical tasting and smelling fruit. It's got, depending on which one you harvest, it's got flavors that are like mango, or like sometimes like a pineapple flavor. The first one I had this past fall tasted like a cantaloupe. They're a very strange thing. It's like a custard inside. Funks Grove has tons of those as well. We harvested over 1,000 pounds last year from the woods. And so we harvested, and it was a bumper crop year to be sure. And we were getting as much as we could. And we missed tons still. There was a lot out there. So we harvested a lot of those, and we sold them to a friend who has her own independent food business in Champaign. And we also had her process some, and then she packaged the processed puree for us to sell through the shop. So we have frozen bags of pawpaw pulp as well. But to get a little more into what all of our farm products look like, I'll go to this next slide. So this is kind of an array of things, and I'll just talk about each of these pictures at one go. Of course, I have to include the maple syrup. As you see in the top left corner here, this is actually our bourbon barrel-aged syrup. So we get barrels from Whiskey Acres up in DeKalb. And so they'll send us 2 barrels, and then we'll fill them with our regular syrup for about 6 months. And we have to keep turning them because they'll actually dry out their barrels and they'll start leaking. So we have to like wax them and turn them, and this is this whole process. That's kind of one of the main ventures of my brother-in-law, Jonathan. And people love this stuff. And honestly, it is super good. And I've had bourbon barrel-aged syrup from I love bragging on other people's stuff. I've had bourbon barrel-aged syrup from other places, and this is the best one I've ever had. It's so good. And that's also a chance to say that, they have the bourbon barrel-aged syrup, but then also he and his fiancee Grace also make the maple cream that's very popular at the shop. And then my wife and I make the maple sugar that's out there, and then she and her parents make the maple candies. And honestly, all of the stuff that we make is like some of the best maple stuff you'll have. I love bragging on it, and it's like you get maple sugar from other places, and it looks like a powder, and what we make is like brown sugar. It's like this rich color, flavor, a lot of cool stuff that we get to make out there. Oh, and actually, we've also started making maple ice cream, which is technically another business that's also out of the syrup shop. That's my wife's cousin Lisa who makes that, and it's just whole cream, maple syrup, and salt, and it rocks. It is, it's so good again. It's the one product that she makes. She's actually going to be making bourbon maple ice cream soon, so basically making it with that instead. On a limited basis, it's going to be probably kind of pricey, but oh man, it's good. So that's some of the maple syrup stuff that we make, and that's all happening in the commercial kitchen out there. Talking from both a farmer perspective and then also starting to lean into a little bit of the policy stuff I also want to talk to you about. A thing that they have out at the maple syrup shop is it's a licensed and inspected commercial kitchen. That's what's in the background of this goofy picture of me. A commercial kitchen is no small asset. They cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to establish. You have to keep them very clean, get them regularly inspected, and then everyone who's using that space has to have some kind of certification in order to be allowed to be in there and using the space. Because we have access to that, which they were told that they had an older kitchen that was grandfathered in for a while, and eventually the county health department was like, you need to build an actual kitchen. So they did, and actually they finished building that they got the final inspection and everything all online, like basically the same day they started to need to make maple syrup in 2018. It was really hectic. It was a really stressful moment. And I had just moved in and like started helping with the operation, and it was like, this is tense. But that was established in 2018, and now that means that our farm can make our value-added products out of that kitchen as well, which is a very rare opportunity for a farmer to have access to be able to make value-added products. And so that supports the maple syrup shop, our farm, and the ice cream business as well. So we make a few different products from the kitchen. I guess I'll talk about what's happening in this picture first, this big pot that I'm holding. Those are all, there's no way to tell from here. I think that's all pears. So we grow peaches, pears, apples, black currants, red currants, black raspberries, cherries we've tried. It's not gone super well. I don't know if we'll get a peach crop this year because we had that deep freeze a couple days ago. But pears and apples always produce in abundance, and so we'll harvest, tens or hundreds of pounds of those, process them, cook them down into what's basically a sauce, but we call it a puree, and then we make a fruit leather with that. And actually, I'll skip ahead for just a second. That's the black currant fruit leather there, but we also make pear, peach, apple, a few other flavors. It's basically just like a healthy, whole actual fruit roll-up with maple syrup, sweetened with maple syrup. So that's one of our lines. The fruit leathers, we also make a maple black raspberry sauce that is absolutely to die for. And again, I'm bragging on someone else's thing. That was my wife's like passion project for a while, just make this incredibly rich, pourable maple black raspberry sauce. It is wildly good. But the thing that we're most known for is actually our pancake mix. So we grow our own wheat. It's a variety called Warthog that is a hard red winter wheat. We grow everything with no synthetic pesticides or herbicides or anything. And the way that I try to explain to people that we're not certified organic, but like I ask you to ask me if you have questions about our growing practices, and I know nothing about how to apply sprays because I've never done it. So like, I don't. It's ignorance partially that lets me not be able to be a farmer that uses synthetic herbicides and pesticides. So it's all natural, as much as farming can be. And so we make a whole wheat pancake mix, a mix we call Whole 4 Acres, which is a combination of wheat and corn, both of which we also grow. We grow a specialty variety called Floriani of our flint corn. It's actually more grown for polenta, but it's an Italian variety that just has a really rich, deep yellow color, and it kind of smells like peanut butter. I love growing that, and it's really reliable too. So yeah, we have our two pancake mixes, Johnny cake mix, cookie mix. What am I forgetting? Did I mention the muffin? We have a muffin mix. And those have kind of been our mainstays, but especially our whole wheat pancake mix is what we're known for. And it's just 4 ingredients. It's the wheat that we grow, it's the maple sugar that my wife makes, baking powder and salt is all that's in that. And they're really good. People like them. We have regular customers, so that's become part of their Sunday routines or their visits to family or holidays or whatever. And I'm really proud of that. It's really fun to get to be a part of other people's, feeding their families well and their friends well. So just a few other things that's going on in this picture. This is the view from what we call the old orchard at our farm. So we have our new orchard established, but we discovered in the back corner of the farm that there's a couple of apple trees that are probably 100 years old apiece. This is one of the oldest peach trees I've ever seen. That's like this gnarly, sad thing, but it's still alive. And I actually put a board under it to hold the branch up because it's just like leaning to one side. And then there's a bunch of peach trees actually in that picture that have just kind of replanted themselves and they just keep regenerating. I don't know how this happens, but we're lucky enough to have the old orchard. And there's actually also black raspberries everywhere. So the grove has the pawpaws, the ramps, and also black raspberries everywhere. And that's where we get most of the black raspberries for that sauce that I was talking about. What else? These are the pawpaws. They look pretty green in this picture. They can sometimes have a little bit more of a yellowish tint or even like straying into orange. Yeah, just a very strange fruit, about this big or so. Tons of fun to eat. They're not for everyone. There's a texture thing with some people. And sometimes some pawpaws just like, they'll be dead ripe and they just still don't taste very good. There's one that, there's an area I stopped picking last year because they tasted like winter squash. Or like, and it was not in a fun way. It was like, you want like a fruity flavor, and it was just like, this tastes like squash. And I just stopped picking from that area because it's all wild genetics, and it's just like, we don't need those. These are our Johnny Cake muffins up in the corner there. And then down in this center photo with the pictures of all the bags on the shelf there, that is some of our product for sale at the Village Farm Stand up in Evanston. So we do everything wholesale. The wholesale relationship with the syrup shop is obviously very hand in glove, where it's like, I'm making a delivery, and then I just walk through the building to the other side and just put it on the shelf myself. But we do wholesale to Green Top Grocery, of course. We've been selling to them. That's our second biggest customer besides the syrup shop. I'm actually going there for delivery right after this. And then we sell intermittently to other places all across the state. And we're trying to expand that wholesale market for especially for the baking mixes, but also the fruit leathers and a few other things. And then that's just one of our stickers. We were talking about, before we started the presentation, we were talking about the stickers and the artwork and stuff that you can find in the syrup shop. My brother-in-law's fiance is an extremely talented artist. And you'll see little bits of her artwork kind of all around the syrup shop, and those are some pancakes that she drew for our sticker there. So that's kind of the lay of the land for our farm. I guess I want to explain one other thing which is pertinent for this time of year, which is that all the ramps, that wild onion I was talking about, are up in the woods right now. And what we do with that is make a seasoning. So we'll cut leaf tops, dehydrate it, and powder it, and combine that with the maple sugar again, and with black pepper and salt. And now bragging on a thing that I do, I'm very proud of that. It's so good. I'm so happy with how it's come out. It's great on popcorn, it's great on meat, it's great on toast. It's good for seasoning almost any meal. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it in here, but that's at Green Top in the syrup shop. And I'm proud of that, both because I like the flavor and also because we don't have to dig any ramps for it. We can leave everything intact and still get great flavor just growing wild in Funks Grove. I already showed you the fruit leather, so that's what's on the right, those rolls there, that's the black currant flavor. That's the first flavor we ever made, and we call them Fruit Wowzers. And the reason we call them Fruit Wowzers is because that first flavor of ours, if you ever had a black currant, they are sweet, but they're also really sour. And we made that, and my mother-in-law had a bite and was like, wowzers! And then she was like, that's what you should, we were trying to figure out the name, and she was like, wait, you should call it that. And we're like, okay, so now we have a whole line of Fruit Wowzers. And they don't all make you feel shocked. The peach nectar just tastes like peach. You have an apple pie flavor, a few other things. I need to make that process more efficient because right now that is not a moneymaker for us. People like them, but like, boy, is that a lot of hand labor. And then this picture here on the left is shiitake mushrooms growing at our farm. People ask us a lot at the syrup shop if we plant sugar maple trees, and it's actually the opposite, where they tend to really overseed. And like any other crop, they need to have spacing. So we'll cut down younger sugar maples to give each individual tree more space. Turns out that sugar maple is like kind of like the second best substrate for growing shiitake mushrooms. The shiitake, as far as I understand in Japanese, actually means like oak mushroom. So they like growing an oak, but we're actually losing oak trees in the grove, and we have way too many sugar maples. So they grow great on that. I sell those fresh wholesale, and I've also dehydrated some, and I'm working on making another seasoning that includes shiitake powder in it. It's a lot of fun in the kitchen. We get to make a lot of cool stuff and be really creative, and feed people great food. So we're having a good time. Okay, other hat. How am I doing on time? All good? Okay, 12:30, great. So Illinois Stewardship Alliance. This is my paid part-time work. Has anyone ever heard of the Illinois Stewardship Alliance? Just a couple of folks? Great. That's actually, I wish more of you knew, but now's my chance. So the Illinois Stewardship Alliance is a statewide organization that brings together folks who are concerned about our food system or who are actual farmers themselves to affect change in our food system through policy. We especially focus on policy change at the state level, but we also do some federal work. representing the entire state and being a really powerful ag state and having senators who are on federal ag committees, we do have a certain amount of influence at the federal level, and now with everything that's happening at the federal level, we've been obligated pretty much to weigh in on more federal stuff. I, however, am more at the state level, and how do I explain? Let me see what's here. Yeah, this is a good place to talk about this. So this is one of our lobby days at the Capitol. So we work to bring together our members from all over the state to advocate for policy change. And this can look like a lot of different things. What was happening here was there were kind of two different lobby days happening at once at the Capitol. Who's ever been to the Capitol when there's a lobby day happening? We were just there on Tuesday, and I'm still kind of socially drained from that. It's so much talking, and there's so many people, and just dodging traffic of people in the Capitol. So on this day pictured, the traffic was our fault. So this is both a soil health lobby day, and then also we were doing some advocacy for the local food infrastructure grant. Maybe I'll just go on to this page. Yeah, talk about our work by way of example. So the Local Food Infrastructure Grant Act, which is under the second heading here, is a grant program at the state level that we helped to get passed and funded over the past couple of years. What this does is provide funding for farmers to apply for, or for food system organizations to buy actual physical infrastructure and build food system infrastructure assets all across the state. And so that can look like food system infrastructure is that stuff that's between when food leaves the farm and when people actually get to eat it. So all the storage, all the processing, the distribution, all falls under local food infrastructure. And so that funding is available to buy that stuff. And that's exciting for a couple of different reasons. One is that that stuff has been, over the past 50, 70, 80 years, has been slowly drained away from Illinois as our agriculture has become more consolidated and there's fewer and fewer crops being grown, farms have become less diversified and bigger. The infrastructure that also helps move around a diverse amount of crops has also gone away with it. And a lot of our interest is in creating a diverse farm and food system in Illinois. And so that requires all that stuff to move the food around and get it processed and make it available for markets. So historically, we're just trying to bring it back. But also, it's really expensive. That stuff costs a lot, and we can't afford it. And so we're trying to make it so that the state is playing a part in bringing a lot of that stuff back. So it's a really small grant program. It's only $2 million, which in the state budget is nothing. And yet, this year again, so we got it passed actually went through a really weird process where the grant was first funded, even though there was no state mandate. It wasn't made into law, but there was funding for it. And then the state was like, okay, here's your funding, you run the program. So they basically told Illinois Stewardship Alliance, and this is before I worked there, that they had to run the grant program, which they had never done before. So we just had to throw together a grant program out of thin air. And those awards went out in 2024. So our farm, Funks Grove Heritage Fruits and Grains, got one of those grants. And another project I'm a part of got one of those grants to build out a commercial kitchen and buy a bunch of food processing stuff. But the grant that we got was, I think, $78,000, and we don't have $78,000. But what we did with that $78,000 was enormous. And actually, I'll go to this last slide just to talk about that a little bit. What's pictured here, here's my wife here on the left, and then there's another farmer that we work with on the right. And what they're operating and looking at is a gravity table. And a gravity table is used for cleaning grain. There's a few different ways to clean grain, and we already had one. And the one we had was basically just like a 2-screen cleaner, so it sorts things by size. And that's great for getting out stuff that's too big, too small. But then what a gravity table does is it sorts things by density. So if grain is lower quality, it'll be less dense. And this will help separate out the grain by density. So you can look at two grains, and they look exactly the same, but then it runs over this table, and they shift apart. So it's basically just shaking like this and blowing air through it, and all the heavier stuff goes off to one side, and we collect that, and the lighter stuff we toss. So this helps us achieve a lot higher quality of our grain. But there's two problems, again. One is that this stuff is really hard to find. No one makes small gravity tables anymore, or if they do, they're wildly expensive. So this thing we got from a company called Commodity Traders International in Trilla, Illinois, which we're lucky enough to have only like an hour and a half from our farm. Big fancy name for that business, and yet what they do is they specialize in small grain handling equipment, especially antiques. And they had this gravity table that we're not going to find new manufactured for us in the modern day. And because we had access to that grant funding, we were able to get this gravity table. We're still learning how to use it. And we discovered once we bought it that you have to actually bolt it down to the floor because it shakes so much that it'll just rattle off. So there's a learning curve just in even getting it like established on our farm in the first place. But because we had access to the local food infrastructure grant, we were able to purchase this. We were able to purchase the augers that you see moving in and out of the frame of this photo. We were able to get a walk-in freezer where we can store all of our milled grain, all of our frozen puree for the fruit leather. We were able to purchase a walkie stacker, which is got basically like a little pallet jack, but it's on a battery. Like all this stuff that actually makes the farm function as a place that can produce food for people to consume that we could not do otherwise. And that exists because of the work that the Illinois Stewardship Alliance does. And when I say the Alliance does that, I mean we empower our members to go out there and make that change, and we just help them get organized and raise up a collective voice. So going back to this, just want to talk about a few other things that the Illinois Stewardship Alliance does. There's things like right-sizing policy, where a lot of times policy is appropriate for very large industry, and it does not make sense for smaller farms, or it limits access for farmers and food business to do certain things. So has anyone heard of cottage food law? Does anyone know what cottage food law is? Great, nice. So cottage food law is a way to help smaller food businesses get started. So like I was saying, a commercial kitchen, really expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars to build one. And so not only is it hard for an individual to establish a commercial kitchen, it's hard to even find one that you can, like someone else has that you can then get to use. Because if you have one, you're trying to utilize as much as possible. So like restaurants have, commercial kitchens, but they're busy and they don't want other people in their space. So cottage food law allows people to cook at home under certain restrictions. So they have to have a inspectable kitchen, and then they can only sell into certain markets, and there's certain food products that they can't make. But it's a stepping stone to help people establish a food business. This is great for farmers who are trying to make some value-added products, either using up what might become food waste otherwise on their farms, or just to add something to their farmers market offerings, or just letting small food businesses get started. So if you want to start a bakery, but you don't have a bakery, you can start at home, and you can be selling direct to consumers the bread that you're baking at home, or the scones, or all that good stuff. So cottage food law was a big project for the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. We make amendments that we ask for, and usually are successful in getting amendments to that law almost every year, of like expanding eligibility a little bit to allow more types of foods to be made at home, or different kinds of markets you can sell to. But that has had real impact for small farms and food businesses across the state. And actually, just to give one more example of like what this, like the evolution of what these policies help get rolling is so exciting. Heidi Lusler is a food business owner over in Champaign. She was doing cottage food production for years out of her home. Really great products. She's also a really talented forager, incredible baker. Just everything she makes is spot on. But she wouldn't have been allowed to do any of that if there wasn't cottage food law at the state level. So she did that for many years, selling out of farmers markets, selling directly to customers. And And then just last summer, she was able to be successful for long enough and basically just like bootstrap this whole thing where she finally built her own commercial kitchen on her farm. And she wouldn't have been able to do that if she wasn't allowed to have a starting place with the cottage food law. And because she did that, and because she's especially focused on processing fruit, we were then able to bring the fruit that we grow to her to process for us with this fancy Italian machine that she got that she was important to her business. And we were like, can we use that? And she was like, absolutely. And she charged us a small fee to use it. But like, we don't have that. So our farm also benefited because she did that, because of the cottage food law. And then we could work with her later because we got local food infrastructure grant funding. So all this policy stuff kind of feeds on itself. I'll just mention a few last things here. Good food purchasing policy. We were just in Springfield on Tuesday. We had 5 priority bills. One was just getting funding for the local food infrastructure grant again, because even though it's law, it doesn't mean that the funding is authorized in the budget, so we're having to push for that. But the good food purchasing policy would be a game changer for local food in the state, because it would start to create a process where more of our state procurement of food, so for schools and hospitals, universities, prisons, mental health facilities, would start to be slowly incentivized to purchase more from the state of Illinois, purchasing more from farms that have sound environmental practices, fair labor practices, animal welfare standards. So we were there on Tuesday, had a press conference, talking to all kinds of lawmakers, asking them to support the good food purchasing policy. We're looking at the possibility of a foraged mushroom policy for the first time in the state. Right now, there's not really a mechanism for people to sell wild mushrooms, and so this would create like a certification program. I'm excited about that because I know my wild mushrooms pretty well, but I can't sell them. I've given them to people. I've traded for them, but this would create like basically a certification class where I could prove that I know what a chanterelle looks like, what an oyster or a mushroom looks like, all that stuff, and be able to sell it to green top farmers markets, whatever. And then this one here is just talking about how there's I think 102 county level, or at least like multi-county level public health departments across the state, and each one has its own rules. So if I want to sell something in Logan County, well, that's a bad example. Logan County is pretty easy. If it was reversed, if I was in Logan County, I want to sell it in McLean County. McLean County has a lot stricter public health department. But then it's not even a matter of like strictness necessarily, it's just like everyone's rules are different and you don't know what you're getting into. And the inspectors all have their own personalities. And it gets complicated. And so we've been looking for years at ways of making it easier to move across counties without suddenly getting penalized or having to pay new fees, just depending on where you go across an otherwise fairly arbitrary line. So making those things make sense for people who are trying to just have an honest living through food and farming. I think that's all I've got. Yes. Is that okay on time? Okay, great.
If you have a question that you would like to ask Jeff, I will run the microphone around so our folks at home can hear your question as well.
It's not a question, just I'm the librarian here at the museum, and about 6 months ago we worked with Evans and Associates as they were ramping down the architectural firm, and they donated a lot of plans, floor plans, renderings to us, included the winery project. So, and I wondered where exactly that was. We didn't have time to do a lot of research as we were accepting this material, so if you ever wanted to look at that
I'd love
stuff,
to see that.
yeah.
I can tell you where it was if you're interested.
Yeah, well now I've got to kind of figure it out because I know where your operation is,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah, it never got, they had big plans, just never quite got there. But now we talk sometimes about possibly wanting to start a diner out in Funks Grove. I love classic American food, and but making it with good local ingredients is like my dream. And Route 66, Funks Grove, I mean, I think it would be, yeah, big success.
Have you ever thought of creating or establishing an organic farming online dating service? Have you benefited from kind of that arrangement?
There's a farmers only, which is actually a dating site for farmers.
Okay.
I don't know if they had to be organic. I'm taking your question seriously. There's also a thing that people will do sometimes called weed dating, which is less drugs than you'd think, based on what it's called. But it's actually like you go to a farm and you weed across a row with someone, and that's your date. And you just like switch. Instead of like speed dating, it's weed dating. You meet some people, get your hands dirty. I've helped arrange some of those before. It's pretty fun.
Well, thank you. This has been fascinating. So, as a Bloomington-Normal resident, it's always nice to get a representative from the kingdom of Funklandia.
Happy to represent.
Any other questions?
How many farms are in your Stewardship Alliance, or is it individuals? Or?
I couldn't say how many farms. I know we have over 1,000 members, but that's both farmers and eaters, we say. And then we also have a category for like food system leaders, who are people who are involved in the food system but are not necessarily farmers. I couldn't say exactly how many farms it is, but it's an awful lot.
Has that increased? Because it seems like to me, the last several years, there's been a lot more small farm, as a result of having farmers markets and different outlets for their food. Has it increased greatly in the last several years, or is it just pretty steady?
Absolutely, especially as far as our membership goes. The Alliance has grown and strengthened a lot the past few years. And we've adopted, I guess I didn't quite talk about like the theory of change and how we do things. We have a caucus model where we'll organize members around a more niche set of issues. So we have a livestock caucus where they work on livestock policy, local food farmer caucus, soil health caucus, and then I'm in charge of the food system leader caucus. And so because we have that, you can drive people towards their specific passions and concerns. And we have grown a lot in the past few years, and it just kind of keeps going up.
Your model seems to have farmers who do everything from grow to produce to sell to market. Is there any interest from some of those people who may not have as large an area to get farmers to simply provide them with product that they can produce and to hook up landowners with people who want product that they can't get in the open market to produce some of these higher end goods?
Mm-hmm. We do actually have a variety of different kinds of farmers in the Alliance. So our farm, we do the stupid thing of trying to do literally every single step of the process, which is not for everyone. And so, interestingly enough, we're actually a pretty bipartisan organization, and we have farmers from all different stripes. So, like our soil health caucus is a lot of 1,000-acre row crop farmers who want to see better policy that helps them steward their land. But they're also functioning in the way of they just grow the crop and they sell it, and that's it. And as an example of a way of sort of making that connection work, I alluded to a cooperative that I'm the vice president of the board in Mount Pulaski, Illinois. It's called the Farm Fed Cooperative. And the ultimate intention of that, and it's the thing that we've been working towards for 5 years now, is to be able to buy bulk produce from farmers, and we're serving as their end market. And so say a farmer have 1,000 pounds of tomatoes, we can buy that from them. They've sold their product, they've done their thing, and then we can process that into tomato sauce or frozen tomato puree or whatever. But sort of, there's a lot of different ways of solving these problems in the food system. Our farm does it one way where we're trying to get everything under one roof, but there's a lot of other ways of doing that too. A lot of farmers don't like marketing. And sometimes they learn that a little too late, where their model is built around direct marketing and selling at farmers markets, and then realizing they don't want to talk to people and have to be in one place every Saturday morning. So creating other options for those growers, let them do what they do best, is a lot of the work that we do too. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
What is the best way someone can support the Stewardship Alliance?
Ooh, yes. Becoming a member of the Stewardship Alliance. You can become a member for as little as, I think, $25 a year, or becoming a sustaining member where you pay $10 a month. So I'm a sustaining member, even though I also, I also work there. Just looking for extra credit. But yeah, becoming a member of the Stewardship Alliance is very appreciated. It's ilstewards.org. So basically just the latter end of my email there, ilstewards.org. You can join, become a member, encouraging others. And then once you're a member, you'll be given all kinds of opportunities to take action along with us, whether it's signing on support for policies that we're working on, even showing up for lobby days, showing up for events that we held. There's a lot of different ways, but becoming a member is the first thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Let's give another round of applause.
Thank you.
We appreciate everyone's support coming out and joining us online. Our next Lunch and Learn will be on May 8th with Dawn Peters, who will be talking about old homes and historic preservation. So thanks. Have a great day.